Hey y'all, alrighty, here we are. What in the world are we doing today? Oh my god. What is it with all these carburetors, huh? Okay, and what about this manual? Well, I tell you what, I'm going to get into all of that here in just a minute. But first of all, I want to say thank you so much for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. It's been awesome. Way over 1,660 something subscribers. It's just it just I'm at a loss for words. So thank you so much for that. It really does mean a lot to me, and seeing the channel grow like that is just amazing. So okay, why am I making this video? Okay, had a viewer subscriber who has requested that I make a video about linkage, throttle linkage going from one barrel to two barrel on a slant six. So I'm going to try to do my best with making this video, but there's some nuances, there's some things I'm not going to be able to touch on, but I hope that you, the viewer, will get as much out of this as you possibly can. Okay. All right. So let's get into it. Okay. Going from one barrel to two barrel on a slant six. All right. Well, of course, I've got I've got a one barrel base here, one of them, and I've got this nice little Holley 1920. So here that is. And as you can see, now we got the little 2-bolt base on this, which most one barrels are like that. There may be some with 3 bolts or 4, but we're just, for the sake of ease, we're just going to say most of your slant sixes you're going to find are like that. Now, most of the 2 barrels you're going to find are going to have these 4-hole, 4-bolt bases. Now, of course, you're going to have to probably change the intake. You can run, however, you can run an adapter to go from this to this or that. Okay, this is a Holley 2280, but it has the same exact bolt pattern here on the bottom as your regular Carter BBD. Okay, of course, this one's seen better days. It's just a parts carburetor now. But the thing is, what I want to illustrate here is that you can, if you go to like the 2-barrel manifold, which this just bolts right on, you can use the 318 carburetor. Some people say, oh no, you can't. You got to have the correct carburetor, and you got to have the correct everything. Well, you know what? You can go in here into these carburetors and you can change out the jets. Okay? Not that hard to do. Now, if you are, the viewer did not tell me if they've got a older Mopar with the the cable actuated throttle linkage like my Barracuda here, okay, or does it have this setup? This is what earlier in 64 and 66 the Barracudas had this. Valiants had this too. There's quite a few other Mopars with the slant six probably had this or something similar to this as well. This is This is not cable. This is a bell crank arrangement that. See, here's your gas pedal. There, this rod goes up under the dash. This rod goes through the firewall and twists because this rod pulls down and pulls that rod in this downward twisting motion. Now, and of course it has throttle. There's a throttle return spring. There's a rod runs right there to this other bell crank and runs back here to the transmission kickdown linkage. If you are running a automatic, extremely, very extremely important, please do not forget your kickdown linkage. I don't care what kind of setup you have. You've got to have a kickdown linkage. on an automatic, or you have to have a manual valve body. Okay, so here's you. If you drive without a if you have a regular automatic transmission, you're driving without the kick down. Guess what? You're going to burn that transmission up. You can't drive it very far without that. All right, so let's say my viewer has the correct manifold. Of course, this just bolts right on. One thing to pay attention to, this little bolt right here. These are very, very important. This basically, if you have the cable actuated setup like this, if you have that, which you can see, it goes right in the firewall there. If you have that, then that will work out. That setup with the two barrel will work out perfectly. Now, one of the things that's very important, ATVers. Okay, one of the things that's really important is to make sure, now you can see right here, I made my own bracket right here, okay? It actually comes around here and comes up, and it's got my throttle cable, my throttle return springs right there. But my cable is held down by this bracket that is part of the original setup. It's a Mopar piece as well. So what happens is my cable comes up here, my throttle pedal pulls on that, pulls it back like so. Now, you might be wondering, wait a minute, what about your kick down? I had that piece of linkage here. Yeah. Oh boy, I had that piece of linkage here just a minute ago. Okay. Oh, it's right here on the car. So, okay, my kick down is right there, and then it goes right there. I've got a little clip that's missing. It goes right there. I haven't driven this car in a while, or run it in quite a while. So, rear end's out right now, so fixing to put that in here just very shortly. But you can see I ran some brackets down here like so, and they just bolt on to a kick down linkage bracket, and then that kick down linkage goes down there and bolts to the transmission. Moves the transmission down there. Yeah, so see if I can do all of this with just two hands. See? So I'm just watching my thumb there. So yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it down there. My throttle valve is being moved on the transmission. Now, so you've got to be, if you're going to do this, you've got to be somebody who's got some creativity and be willing to try this, maybe 2 or 3 different ways to get all of this set up correctly. This does look a little bit intimidating, I know, to somebody who's kind of uninformed or not been around this before, but believe you me, this is not that hard to do. Now, this particular little bracket right here, this is from Holley themselves. So if you're running a Mopar, you have to get this. Okay, Edelbrock sells something similar to that if you're running a Mopar. Because if you don't, what happens is you cannot get full throttle just by using one of the regular holes here, okay? So, anyway, all right. So, this is the old throttle cable, or not throttle cable, but throttle rod actuated kind of setup here. There would be a rod that goes in here, and then this would get twisted, just like over here in the picture. See, right there. Yeah, this would be sitting like this. And then this would get twisted like so. Yeah, so anyway, all right. So make sure when you do your swap, make sure to get this. Now, I would also strongly recommend when you take your one barrel off, your one barrel intake off your Slant 6, and you put your 2 barrel on, or your 4 barrel, or whatever, please, whatever you do, don't start throwing crap away. You may be tempted to do that. Don't do it. It's the worst possible thing you can do. I would strongly recommend keeping everything you take off, okay? Because some of it, like some of this kickdown linkage, you might be able to reuse. This is off of a late 70s, like Valari, okay? I think this is actually a kickdown right here. This is actually for a V8. So, that's what I want to try to tell you about. But these brackets, not hard to make. I mean, you know, I had to just basically get creative. They're not the prettiest in the world, I do realize, but you know what? They get the job done. So, there you go. All right. Anyway, now, so you need to be sure to probably also take some measurements as to what you need to do. If you still have, I'll tell you this, if you still have this kind of arrangement on your Mopar, please go to the throttle cable setup. It's just much simpler and more direct. And this, like I said, this is from a all of this is from the late 70s, including that rod there. That is all, you know, late 70s. Well, 70s, like probably 1970 and later. Matter of fact, we can go over here in the book and we can see something very similar. Let's see. Okay, yeah, see right here. This is not very different from what I've got right there. And then, yeah, see, this isn't very different either. This is a V8, but you get the picture. Yeah, there's your kickdown rod. There's the cable coming up there. So, all right. I hope this answers your questions. That viewer, I hope this helps you out. You know, if you have any further questions about this, please be sure to just drop a comment down below. I'll do my very best to help you out and try to answer your questions the best I possibly can. But need to make sure, you know, need to make sure that your linkage does not bind up. That's another thing. Make sure that you have full return and full travel. So when you pull that throttle back all the way, there's no binding. Now look at that cable when I pull it back. I'll tell you what, let me get the light over here real quick. Okay, now you look at this cable right here when I pull it all the way back. See, there's no binding, okay? No binding at all. So that's really super important, okay? Make sure you understand that is what you got to have. Now, I am still tuning on this right here in my kickdown linkage. And so I'm going to probably put me a nut and bolt in here to keep this, whenever it kicks it down, I pull it back all the way, it pushes on this throttle valve a little bit, you see. But also too, I'm supposed to have a return spring on this as well. I don't have that return spring, so I've got to get that. And that's another thing. Make sure you've got your springs, at least 2 return springs on your throttle, because like I said, you want it to just snap right back. No hesitations at all. You want it to just pop right back, okay? And you don't want any binding in the cable. You don't want any binding on the pullback on the acceleration when you're going to full wide open throttle. You want all of that to work just like it's supposed to. So anyway, all right. I hope this answers your questions. And there's no, like I said, though, if you do have any further questions about all of this, just feel free to drop me a comment down below. I will do the very best to try and help you out as much as I possibly can. Also, if you're doing this work, be hitting the junkyards. Even look at like Dodge trucks from like the 80s on back. Maybe even some 90s stuff. And another thing to think about is get yourself a couple of manuals on your car. Haynes, Chilton's, something. Anything's better than nothing. Okay? And be hitting those manuals. That is a great resource. Okay? And really helps you out. Furthermore, there are companies that do make throttle cable kits and kick down linkage kits. Low car, they make a kick down linkage cable setup. And Mr. Gasket makes some throttle cables as well. So be looking around out there on the internet. Summit Racing, Jags, Speedway Motors, all of those probably help you out, trying to get the information, get, proper cable length and everything like that. Now, myself, that throttle cable there, I think they use the same one for a long time on a lot of the A bodies. So, like one from 65 on up to, on up into like 76. Yeah, 76. So, but you might even be able to use one from an 80s Dodge pickup as well. So sometimes some of this stuff is you gotta experiment a little bit. Okay, so don't get frustrated and throw up your hands. All right, thank you very much for watching. God bless. Have a great one. I'll see you later.